Coming up on The Cut, it's been 1 year since Russia began its military campaign, the latest announcement President Biden made in the effort for peace.
Also, the Supreme Court is deciding on the fate of the internet, a case determining liability of big tech companies. More info on the hearing coming up next.
Lastly, Apple is unveiling new emojis with a new update coming this week. We have a sneak peek into which new little symbols you might see next on your phone. The Cut starts right now.
Hello and welcome to the Cut Network. I'm Emily Fox-Millian.
And I'm Donovan Growney. It has now been 1 year since Russia led a special military operation into Ukrainian territory, starting the Russia-Ukraine war. Nearly 13,000 people have been injured and 8,000 civilians have been killed, according to the UN Office of Human Rights. Just ahead of the 1 year mark, President Biden flew into the capital of Ukraine, Kyiv, secretly on Monday to tour the city. Biden joined Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The two presidents gathered to pay respects to those who had lost their lives during the war. President Biden then made a stop in Poland on Tuesday. During a pre-planned speech, he targeted Vladimir Putin, saying Western allies stand with Ukraine.
Here into this war, Putin no longer doubts the strength of our coalition, but he still doubts our conviction. He doubts our staying power. He doubts our continued support for Ukraine. He doubts whether NATO can remain unified. But there should be no doubt. Our support for Ukraine will not waver. NATO will not be divided, and we will not tire.
Biden also announced during the speech the U.S. will host the 2024 NATO summit. This is a gathering of major world leaders.
Tensions are rising between the United States and North Korea yet again. The United States and South Korea have both responded to North Korea's latest test of their Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, or ICBM. This happened on Saturday. A day after the launch, the United States flew a formation of their long-range supersonic bombers alongside some of South Korea's warplanes. Experts on North Korea predict that not only will Kim Jong-un continue his missile tests, but he may use the United States and South Korea's responses in the air as a reason to continue North Korea's nuclear development. Analysis of the North Korea's missile data says these missiles North Korea is testing could possibly reach the United States mainland.
Over the last couple of weeks, places in Arizona have seen dramatic shifts in weather. Denton Cortez is here with some more insight.
Thank you, Donovan and Emily. Yes, Phoenix City can expect high wind gusts of up to 50 miles per hour, but we're going to be around the 40 mile per hour mark. We're getting all this wind gusts coming in from the west, from Lake Havasu City, Bullhead City, Prescott, and a little bit of Yuma. Also, we're going to expect a little bit of rainfall as well, up to 1/10 of an inch, so not too much, but it's going to be on and off. So if you have any expectations of going out or any plans, you might want to stay inside because it's going to be a little bit windy and a little bit of rain. As far as the high country going into Flagstaff, expect big snowfall as well, of up to 6 to 12 inches of snow. So if you're heading up to Flagstaff, bring your skis, bring your jacket, because it's going to be fresh snow. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Denton, for the update.
The Phoenix Mercury have quite the season to look forward to with some big names on the roster. Cut reporter Tyler Abrams is here to give us a preview of what the 2023 WNBA season is looking like for the Mercury. And Tyler, it looks like a big name is coming back to the Valley.
Yes, Emily, these names are huge. The WNBA's all-time leading scorer, Diana Taurasi, has agreed to a multi-year deal with the Phoenix Mercury. The Mercury's announcement of Taurasi's re-signing was announced just around the same time as Brittney Griner's one-year contract with the Mercury as well. Now, Taurasi had previously stated earlier this month that while she was open to playing with the Mercury, signing with other teams was not out of the question. However, this announcement has put to rest any doubts about Taurasi's loyalty to the only team she has ever played with. As an all-time leading scorer with 9,693 points, in addition to 3 WNBA championships and 5 Olympic gold medals, Phoenix Mercury fans will be more than happy to see her return. As we all know, Brittney Griner had missed the entirety of the 2022 season due to being detained in Russia over a 10-month period. Now, she is eager and ready to suit up for the Phoenix Mercury once again this year alongside the best in the league. In an Instagram post this past Wednesday, she posted, quote, "So good to be back with the family at Phoenix Mercury," along with a video highlighting her most recent season with the fans and the team. Now the Mercury have only one of 7 dunkers in the WNBA and the league's all-time scorer and perhaps the greatest player in WNBA history on their roster. Without a doubt, they're shaping up to be a super team hungry for their next title. The Phoenix Mercury will open up their season on May 19th on the road against the Los Angeles Sparks and have their first home game against the Chicago Sky on May 21st. Emily, back to you. This has been Tyler Abrams with The Cut.
Looking forward to some good basketball this summer. Thanks, Tyler.
Nearly 3 years after the COVID pandemic, there is yet another sign of life returning to normal. Remember the COVID tracker run by Johns Hopkins? Well, next month it will shut down. March 10th will be the last day officials from the Johns Hopkins Coronavirus Resource Center modify their tracker. At the beginning of the pandemic, when anxiety was high and there was a lack of federal data on the amount of cases, the Johns Hopkins COVID tracker became one of the top COVID trackers in the country. The tracker is credited for providing vital information for millions of people during a time of crisis. Data from the Johns Hopkins tracker was used by local policymakers, state officials, and even the White House. More than 1 million people died due to the coronavirus in the United States. 5 doctors from Romania are being investigated for misuse of equipment. Cut reporter Carly Poyer is here. And Carly, it seems like Romanian officials are taking this very seriously.
Thanks, Donovan. That is correct. And now we are seeing the major effect. 5 Romanian doctors from Iași are being investigated on the suspicion of extracting medical implants from dead patients and then reusing them in 238 surgeries in the last 7 years, according to prosecutors. One of the doctors, believed to be overseeing the other 4, was taken into custody last Saturday on charges of abuse of power and bribe taking. The prosecutors further claim that many of the implants recommended by the 5 doctors were not necessary. Allegedly, the 5 doctors would make false diagnoses or use patients' previously prescribed medication to trigger specific symptoms. No information is known at this time as to why the doctors created this network that put their patients at risk of serious complications and/or death. However, it is known that Romania's healthcare system is currently the least developed within the European Union, having been bogged down by corruption, inefficiencies, and politicized management, according to CNN. They have spent the least amount of money on their healthcare as well, having only built 1 hospital in the last 3 decades. Due to these conditions, tens of thousands of doctors and nurses have permanently left Romania. For the Cut Network, I'm Carly Poyer. Donovan, back to you.
For the information, Carly, we'll be sure to keep up and give any updates.
A new border policy introduced by the Biden administration on Tuesday could make it harder for asylum seekers to enter the United States before their asylum is granted. This plan would reportedly penalize people who cross the border without this asylum. The Biden administration could have the authority to send border crossers back to Mexico through a process called expedited removal. This policy is not expected to start until May, when Title 42 expires. You may remember Title 42 is a policy put in place since the beginning of COVID that turned away people from the border, citing safety concerns. Many in Congress are criticizing this policy. The Biden administration says these measures are only temporary. A train in Ohio that derailed a couple of weeks ago is still laying on the side of the tracks, spitting out toxic fumes. Cut reporter Alana Goodman is here, timing this out for us. And Alana, it looks like the government is taking action to attribute blame here?
Yes, hello Emily, that is correct. Norfolk Southern Railroad, the company that caused the crash, now has to pay for the cleanup, according to the EPA. You may remember just earlier this month on February 3rd, a Norfolk Southern freight train derailed and crashed in East Palestine, Ohio. An explosion occurred, causing toxic chemicals to be released into the air, ground, and water. The spill leaked into the Ohio River, causing water to be somewhat contaminated. This particular train carried hazardous materials, including vinyl chloride. This is a substance known to be deadly to humans. After the crash, the train released black smoke, causing the soil, water, and air to be contaminated and dangerous. The area was temporarily evacuated, but has since been determined to be safe by the government. But citizens in Ohio are less certain wearing masks. Residents hope this will prevent illnesses that follow like nausea, rashes, and trouble breathing. Recently, the EPA said there is no vinyl chloride near any important waterways. However, residents are still unconvinced and uncomfortable. Pete Buttigieg, the United States Secretary of Transportation, plans to visit East Palestine for a plan of action. An investigation is also underway. For the Cut Network, I'm Alana Goodman. Emily, back to you.
Thanks, Alana, for breaking down that back and forth.
Roald Dahl, the author of popular children's books such as Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Matilda, is facing new controversy over modifications made to his books. In newly printed editions of these classics, the words in these books have been altered. Representatives managing his estate say this is to promote inclusion and make them less offensive. The British newspaper The Telegraph reports words have been changed in at least 10 of the author's 19 children's books. Netflix has been working with Dahl's estate since 2020 to produce movies based off his books. Another Charlie and the Chocolate Factory film is set to be released in 2023, starring Timothée Chalamet. Journalist Gail King of CBS News was in town to visit us here at Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications. Cut reporter Charlie Vicario is here to tell us more about the visit and her inspirational message to students. Charlie?
The message was inspirational indeed. Thank you, Donovan. This week, television journalist and co-host of CBS This Morning, Gail King, traveled to downtown Phoenix to receive the 39th Walter Cronkite Award for Excellence in Journalism. The honor is given every year by Arizona State University's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism Mass Communication. The Cronkite Award, named after the late CBS News anchor, has honored prominent journalists since 1984. The award recognizes the recipient's accomplishments and leadership. Ms. King, who is also editor-at-large of Oprah Daily and hosts a live weekly radio show called Gail King in the House on Sirius XM. Before King was honored for the award, she stopped by the Cronkite School for a live interview answering questions from future journalists. As Cronkite students, we appreciate her kind words and wisdom. It was such an honor having Gail King here at the Cronkite School. We congratulate her and thank her for the time spent here. For the Cut Network, I'm Charlie Vicario. Donovan, back to you.
Thanks, Charlie. Glad you attended the event, and thanks for bringing us the latest.
Earlier this week, the Supreme Court heard a case that could determine the future of the internet. Justices debated the validity of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. The act protects big social media companies from the liability of their users' posts. The case stems from a 2015 terrorist attack in Paris that killed 130 people. ISIS claimed responsibility for these attacks. The plaintiff said Google and YouTube aided and abetted ISIS through videos that allegedly radicalized the attackers. During the hearing, the justices expressed skepticism that Google and YouTube were responsible for this. The first hearing on Tuesday lasted more than 2.5 hours. A ruling is not expected until the summer.
Pretty soon, you could be verified on Instagram and Facebook if you're willing to pay the price. Meta, the parent company of both Facebook and Instagram, is launching a paid subscription service. The program is called Meta Verified. Mark Zuckerberg says this is meant to help creators on Meta sites grow their audience and build communities. People who are verified will receive additional community support. This new service addresses some of the major problems that users were complaining about, such as the excess amount of fake accounts and the difficulty of reaching customer service. Users that sign up with their web browser will need to pay $11.99 per month, and users that sign up through their Android and Apple devices will have to pay $14.99 for the service. Twitter launched a similar service called Twitter Blue that costed $8 online and $11 a month on the app.
Arizona's rural parts could see new funding for improvements in their infrastructure. The Department of Agriculture announced $66 million in funding for various projects. 17 projects are set to split this money. The biggest project, a new healthcare facility in Casa Grande that will cost $52.5 million. In total, the Department of Agriculture dished out more than $262 million across the nation to fund rural development in the United States. Also trending for you today, have you noticed it was a little windy around Phoenix?
Well, as it turns out, the wind is affecting a lot more than Arizona. One reporter from Las Vegas found this out the hard way.
Right here, a traffic light is still out, and that went out just early in the afternoon. Wow. Well, there's a great example. Holy cow. Those are the kind of gusts that we're seeing. So I think that explains everything. John, I'll send it back to you.
That was Drew Andre. He is a reporter from Fox 5 in Vegas, and as you can see, the wind completely takes him out. In fact, according to his Twitter bio, Andre is a Cronkite graduate. Also trending for you today, a new way to communicate.
If you have an iPhone, a fresh selection of emojis will be available to you very soon. This is what they look like. The emojis will include a shocked face, 3 new hearts, peas in a pod, and a fresh set of animals. This is all a part of the iOS's 16.4 update. The beta version became available on Thursday. In total, 31 new emojis are available for your texting pleasure.
Well, I'm not exactly sure when I'll use a pea in a pod or a moose, but I'm just glad the emoji department in Apple has something to do.
It's alive and well, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the peas in a pod, personally.
Really?
But yeah, it's just me. It's fine.
To each their own, I guess. And thanks for joining us on The Cut this week. Be sure to follow us on social media at The Cut Network on Instagram.
And @TheCut_ASU on Twitter. Thanks for joining us. I'm Emily Foxmillion.
And I'm Donovan Growney. Good night.